Hello, I'm John Michael Bailey, and this is the Wellspring Digital Chat, where we bring marketing brains directly to you. Today, we have someone who I just met a little while ago, and also found out that we're both drummers, and that's way cool. And that's all I really want to talk about, but I'll hold back. So, Lily, if you could please introduce yourself to these fine folks.
Sure. My name is Lily Ray. I'm the Director of SEO at Path Interactive. I've been doing SEO for about 10 years. I've been doing music a lot longer than that. So I started playing drums when I was like 6, and I'm a DJ as well. So I do both things, but very, very focused in SEO. Love technical SEO, service a lot of different clients at Path, help run the strategy across many, many different types of companies. So it's kind of my passion in life. Yeah.
Well, as I said, our CEO, Karl Hindle, introduced me to you and kept saying, you got to talk to Lily Ray. You got to talk to Lily Ray. And I said, fine, fine. And then I read your bio and I was like, man, I would have talked to her a lot sooner. This is so cool. She's way into music and I'm into music. I love drumming.
Nice.
I haven't been playing quite as long and I'm probably not nearly as good as you are, but
That's not true.
doesn't matter. But unfortunately, I could talk all day about drumming, but we need to dive into SEO because you are a badass SEO.
Thank you.
And I've been reading up on some of your stuff and prepping for this. And technical SEO is no joke, and you got a handle on it. So I wanted to dive in a little bit into that. But first, I wanted to talk about, you mentioned you've been doing SEO full time for 10 years. And between 2010 and 2020, a lot has changed in SEO. And I wanted to, kind of pitch you out a softball here and see if you could tell us some old school SEO tactics that people just don't seem to get rid of, that they don't want to let go of, that they don't want to let die.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest one is link building, or links that violate Google's guidelines, which it's tricky because they still work in some cases. So there's like this big gray area about what works and what doesn't. There's a whole undercurrent of people that obviously sell links and buy links, and for many, even reputable SEO agencies or professionals, they're still making that part of their process because it's very difficult to earn links organically. So I don't buy links anymore. I did at one point, but that never seems to go away. Yeah. And then just like cutting corners in general, I think a lot of people have this understanding of SEO the way that it used to work, where you could tweak something small and see really big impacts from it. And that's less and less the case lately. It really requires like creative strategy, and not everybody can do that. So I think that's probably the biggest change that's happened over the last 10 years or so. Can't really get away with things as much.
Yeah, that makes sense. I keep waiting for the algorithms to get even more hardcore and just clean house, but it seems to be a rolling update. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, I actually this came up on a call with a client today, was EAT or EAT. A lot of SEO articles are talking about EAT, and I wanted to see, I feel like it's been a ranking factor for years in some respects, but it's only sort of been talked about recently. I wanted to see if you could tell all these people what EAT is, and then give your thoughts on its importance and how to go about achieving it.
Yeah, so first of all, it stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And to the point about this has been part of the algorithm for a long time, I think that's true and for sure. But Google kind of started clearly defining it a few years ago in its search quality guidelines. It started in like 2014. Now it's a really big part of the search quality guidelines. So that's what they use to train human evaluators of the algorithm and of the performance of the search results. So it's an indirect thing where like that's the main place where EAT lives as part of Google's documentation. So it's not something where they've said like, improving EAT directly impacts the rankings of your page the way that they have for something like, keywords in your title tag, or using SSL or page speed or things like that. But it's an indirect thing, and it's certainly something that's becoming, I think, increasingly important for especially websites that handle topics related to people's health and safety and the news and anything that could potentially be like, like fake news or disinformation or anything where Google's really scrutinizing the quality of its search results as it relates to user safety. EAT is a really big factor. So the things that go into EAT, I think many of those signals have been part of the algorithms for many years, but I do think they're turning up the dial, and I do think that they're looking at new considerations in the past couple of years.
What kind of impact do you think that's going to have on the average, say, business who's looking for rankings and that sort of thing? What do they need to know? Obviously, they don't need to get super technical with it, but what kinds of things should that mean to them?
Yeah, so if you haven't been like deceptive in your SEO strategy or your marketing strategy, or you haven't been cutting corners or producing really low quality content because maybe you got like affiliate revenue from it or something, like you're probably not going to run into huge EAT issues if you've been mostly like authentic with your brand and your marketing and everything like that. It's really like a lot of the churn and burn type sites that, especially in the health space, that have seen big impacts from this. So if you've cut corners for many years and you happen to rank a couple of years back for like financial keywords or health keywords or legal keywords, that's probably not going to happen anymore if you weren't very forthcoming about like who's writing the content, how much can you trust those people. And that's something that we actually saw. And one of the reasons why I talk about EAT so much is because it happened to one of my main clients at Path on August 1st, the Medic update. And it was like so devastating. And I hadn't seen a core algorithm update play out in that way since Penguin. But during Penguin, I was buying links. So it was a much more clear like cause and effect than Medic. So it's important, but it's for many sites, it's not a huge consideration, but for sites where it is, it's very important.
Makes sense. So kind of, segueing into that, you wrote an article for Path where you talked about how QDF or something similar is causing changes in search results because of COVID. I'm going to read this. Specifically, you mentioned, and I'm paraphrasing, Google is showing new search features for health-related searches, which is reducing the visibility of non-government health publishers. So first, can you explain what QDF is, and then talk a little bit about some of the unintended consequences of our new COVID reality?
Yeah, so a couple different things there. QDF is a name for a Google algorithm or set of algorithms that was developed in like 2007. So it's not entirely new, but it stands for Query Deserves Freshness. And it's Google's way of identifying if the user's query should produce results that are like timely in nature. So like the top stories panel would be triggered in Google News, and maybe the search results themselves contain some updated new content. What was really interesting about coronavirus was that we saw either QDF or something very similar to QDF happening in the search results for a lot of queries where you wouldn't expect that to be triggered. So something like hand sanitizer, obviously. Like in 2020, there's a lot of news and a lot of new information about hand sanitizer where maybe last year that wouldn't have been a QDF keyword because there's not that much new information about hand sanitizer.
It would have been like a bunch of Amazon links or something.
Yeah, it's transactional or something that's like pretty predictable. But that's just one example of like thousands and millions of keywords that suddenly became newsworthy in 2020. So the result of that was that a lot of queries that you wouldn't expect were producing results that were like entirely new. So there was like some gaming keywords or some sports keywords where last year you would have seen like statistics around college football or whatever. But this year, if you typed like play football or football something or other, you might see a bunch of online games to play football because football's canceled, but you can play it online. And the algorithms were like detecting that without people saying play the game online. They were just saying play football. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's an interesting example of being able to see the algorithm play out where the layperson may not understand that there's a lot of layers to what Google is doing. And I think it's a great example of how, people need to take, the SEO guidelines, the real SEO guidelines a lot more seriously. because they could be dependent on rankings that are gone one day.
Totally.
Yeah,
There's been
interesting.
a lot of that this year. Like another example with QDF was that, let's say you're like, I saw a lot of state queries. So if you type like New York or California or anything like that,
Right.
Maybe you've had a page that was about things to do in California or tourism in California. And like that was just something where your visibility was completely reduced
Right.
while coronavirus news dominated the entire first page or the top first half of the page. And that's like, you can't really do much about that, especially if you're a tourism company, but maybe you can produce some content about the current restrictions on traveling in California, so there's ways to adapt.
Do you think that's going to happen? Sorry for droning on this, but I think it's really interesting. Do you think that's going to happen more often, or I guess maybe be more visible to people that Google's going to, that QDF is going to, I'm butchering this question, but do you think that's going to happen more frequently, where people are going to go, okay, yes, Google is serious about giving search results that are topical, on point, on time, and what people are really looking for, as opposed to I can add a bunch of keywords to my website and rank. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Google determining intent has been
Right.
one of the main priorities of their, organic search algorithms over the past forever. But they're getting better at it. And now there's so many new search features that they can play with and experiment with. So, there's a lot of queries that are super ambiguous in nature. So one that I've targeted for an old client was toner. If you just type the word toner, and it was a skincare client. So for them, it was like the most valuable keyword. But they're competing with printers that sell toner as well. So Google has to like grapple with, okay, we only have 10-ish results on the page.
Right.
We don't know if the person's searching for makeup or printer toner. So I think what they're trying to do is really refine like what's someone's intent, and they have a lot of different ways that they're doing this. And I talked to Bill Slawski, who is the expert in Google patents, and he dug up a patent that looks at, I don't know if they're using it or not, but it was something that Google patented a couple of years ago that looks at like your personal search behavior, your personal emails, your contact list, where you're standing, whether or not you're driving at the time that you make the search. So they're doing the best they can with all the information that they have. And I think that's one of the reasons why Google's so pervasive on the internet, is just to get all this data. But they're certainly getting better at it, for sure.
Yeah. I was just on a chat with Bill yesterday for VC Buzz with Ann Smarty. That was fun.
He's brilliant. It's so fun talking to him, as well as Ann. She's very smart as well.
Both of them. So another thing that we have in common is we come from a technical background. So my dad used to code through the night and on like the punch cards and reel to reel. Like, so I would go with him to work and sleep on a cot in an office while he's like, doing his thing. But I think, that helped me. I'm not a super technical person, but I am able to understand those things because of the way I was brought up. But and you talk about that as well, that this technical background has helped you in your SEO career. But do you think, is there a way for the layperson, the non-technical person, to be able to understand SEO at a certain level, or do they even need to understand SEO on any sort of technical level if they're trying to market and get rankings for their site?
Yeah, no, I think SEO has become such a big field that it's not entirely necessary to understand technical SEO. You should absolutely have the foundational understanding of it if you're going to be on an SEO team, but it's really important to know what you're an expert in and to know when you're not an expert in something, and to make sure that you have somebody on your staff or on your team that is an expert. So every SEO team needs technical expertise. Does every single person need to be a full-on expert? I don't think so. It's not possible. And what happens when you try to structure a team that way is that the people who are not super technical, you put them in situations where they're supposed to be identifying technical problems or
Right.
communicating technical things to clients, and they just can't, and it's just not a good solution. So we have someone on my team who's the technical SEO director, and he's phenomenal, and he supports everyone on the team when they need that help. But the other people are experts in other things. So maybe you're extremely good at local SEO. You don't need to be a technical expert to know how to do local SEO really well.
Sure.
Or to be a content strategist. You just don't need those skills, but you can still call yourself a good SEO. I mean, you're still coming up with SEO strategies, you're still increasing organic traffic, but it's important to delineate because there's too much knowledge in the SEO space for someone to be an expert in everything.
Exactly. And then I run into clients who they read an article maybe, a year ago, and that's what SEO is to them.
Yeah, of course.
And so, yeah, I agree. I almost think business owners and marketers should all have a baseline understanding of what SEO is and what it is, and whether they want to go further with it is up to them and their roles. But yeah,
I agree.
So this last question is just for me. And so you played drums in a duo called 2 Seconds, which is pretty badass. And I watched the videos, and you guys rock,
Nice.
and it was good stuff. So I like creating fake street fight scenarios. So in a street fight between the White Stripes, Lozen, if you've ever heard of them, they're out of Seattle. The Black Keys, who I think would get their asses beat, the Carpenters, and 2 Seconds. Which duo would be the last band standing?
Well, first of all, 2 Seconds was my band from the ages of 15 to like 20. So it's not a real band anymore. So as far as the street fight goes, we would have been teenagers, which is something to consider.
Is you scrappy?
Yeah, probably pretty fast.
You got nothing to lose?
Yeah, that's true too. It felt that way for sure. God, that's a hard one. I was kind of hoping you would ask like Slater Kinney and Bikini Kill and bands like that, because they would probably just kick ass. But as far as
I wanted to stick with duos, though.
Got it. I'm gonna say 2 Seconds. I mean, like the White Stripes are too glamorous. Like
right?
Jack White in a fight, it's just not. He'd be too worried about his makeup. Like it's not. We were badasses when we were teenagers, so I'm gonna go with my former band.
See, my pick would have been a toss up between 2 Seconds and the Carpenters, only because you can never underestimate the Carpenters. Have you ever seen her drum solo video?
I have not.
In her day, she was a badass.
Wow. Yeah, I have to check that out.
There's something scary about the brother.
Oh yeah, something off
creepy
about him.
Something creepy about the brother. I think he would. But yeah, I at the end of the day, I got to go with you guys. I think you could take it.
Oh, thanks. That's
in your
highest honor. Kick Meg White's ass. I wanted to when I was super into drumming. I was just like, this is not fair. Like, no offense, Meg White, but like, come on, you can do something a little more interesting than that.
It's hard to watch.
No offense. Don't.
No, she did her best, I guess.
Yeah,
she did something.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, like I said, I could talk about drumming all day with you, and I really appreciate everything you've given us in terms of understanding SEO, especially technical SEO. It's great to meet you, and I really appreciate your time, and stay safe, stay healthy, and all that.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Keep drumming.
Yes.
Keep fighting the good fight.
Heck yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.